Portugal. Okay, first thing, we're taking the city tour straight from the airport. It's a beautiful sunny day. We had just come from, where did we come from? We came from, oh man, we came from Rome, and it was really quite cold, but now it's 23 degrees. It's hot, but it's still windy, and right in front of me, or right behind me, you can see it right there. So Paris has the Eiffel Tower, and London has the Big Ben, and Portugal has the Belém Tower. So I think one of the most interesting things that I am learning, for those of you who are my foreign viewers, so the Philippines was actually discovered by an explorer named Magellan. Now Magellan allegedly is Portuguese, but then as what we've been taught in school, and even here in Portugal, is that Magellan had approached the King of Lisbon. At that time I think it was King Manuel, and so that he could sail around the world, and unfortunately he was denied that, so they say. And so instead he decided to approach the King of Spain instead, and that is what we know. That's why we are called Philippines, named after King Philip of Spain. Monument over here, I believe, was dedicated to Henry the Navigator. Is it Henry? Yes, it's Henry the Navigator. Henry the Navigator was the fourth son of the king at that time. I forgot the name of the king. It's flashing right there. Okay, so his dad was telling him, you know what you should do? You should sail around the world, and you should build the best boats, find the best people to build the boats, to get the fabric for the sails, for the yada yada yada. Basically find like the dream Avengers team to get rolling around the world. And that's exactly what he did. And the map that I showed you right there, every time there's a number and there's a name, it means that that country was actually discovered by Portugal. Like Terra Nova, I believe that is Newfoundland in Canada. Of course, at that time, you know, like a gazillion years ago, it's not like everybody knew how big the world was, because also at that time they believed that the earth was flat according to the teachings of the Vatican. So before anybody could ever do an exploration, they would always have to get permission first from the Pope. That's right, he was like the OG at that time. So once they had their ships, and the dad was like, okay, go sail around the world. And I know some people are like staring at me and they're thinking like, what the fuck is she doing? I'm teaching history to people on YouTube, guys. That's what I do. And then he wanted to sail around the world, and he was going to do that, and he wanted to explore, because he was thinking there was only so many countries that were discovered at that time. Like there was Egypt, I think there was South Africa, and that was it. There wasn't much. So they knew there was a lot of lands to be conquered. So what they did was they actually went to Italy, and they asked permission from the Pope and said, look, we know you don't want us to go exploring because you're so worried that we're gonna sail into some great waterfalls, aka flat earth, and you know you're concerned for us. We get it. But so what they did instead is, look, we're gonna go explore, and once we find these people that we've conquered or discovered, we're gonna baptize them, or we're gonna convert them into Christianity and become your peeps and become one bigger family in the name of religion and Christianity. Isn't it an amazing story? Just goes to show, when people come together, great things happen. And when you're curious, the earth is not flat. There's no great waterfalls. Alright, so that's the statue, or the giant monument right over there. It's kind of hard to see, but at the top right there, that is Henry the Navigator. Now apparently you can't get a clear shot of him unless you're actually on the water. Okay, so again, what I'm trying to remember is basically, if you see right there, that is the symbol of Portugal. And so the king was telling his son, he's like, yo man, when you get to a certain country, you gotta make sure that you leave that you leave that sign, you leave the logo or the flag or the crest to make sure that people know that we were here first, because when Spain comes there, they're gonna think, hey, first dibs. Nah, we were here first. Oh yeah. Wow, this place looks super tiny, but then one area has like 400 seats. It looks so small from the outside, but it's like super big on the inside. And everybody has come for the same thing. Of course, you know, Portuguese eat egg tarts. I usually know them from Lord Stowe's, which is from Macau. But of course, when I said that to my tour guide, he's like, please. But of course, you want to get it from the stores, right? So that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so I just learned that this place has so many reviews, more than the Eiffel Tower, more than the Louvre. And on a summer day, usually in August, it takes about 4 hours just to get a table inside this place. No wonder it's so big. I mean, now there are tables and everything, so we're actually very blessed. They actually make 25,000 tarts every single day. And everything is made fresh, so every half an hour, if they don't sell it, they actually give it to charity. But usually, by the rate, especially when it's peak season, that probably won't even happen. Probably won't even happen. But today, we are having one. Okay, so this is our tour guide. Hi, Roy.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so Roy has taught me how to eat the Portuguese tart. Now my sister is going to help me film this. Okay, so usually how I've always done it is you get it like a pizza and you bite into it. But then again, he said that you can actually use powdered sugar or cinnamon. You can sprinkle on it, and it's really up to you. My mom had it plain, but he taught me another way to eat it, which is how his daughter does it, which is what I'm going to do. Okay, so you have the tart. It's kind of like an Oreo. So many people eat Oreos in a different way. So Roy says you kind of scrape the sides, so you're basically scraping all that good juicy filling. Is that okay? Yeah? And then espresso. I love anything mocha, cappuccino, no, not cappuccino, anything coffee flavored. So we're gonna combine the best of both worlds. You get a bit of the coffee, a bit of the espresso, put it on the sides. Okay, I'm gonna try a little bit. Wow, okay. I've tried Portuguese tarts before, and of course from Macau. And of course it's true, it's super not the same thing. It's so velvety and custardy, and it's actually not super sweet. And then you get a bit of the bitterness from the espresso. It's amazing. And then the crust is so thin. Usually the tarts that I've had, especially from Lord Stowe's, the most famous one that they say is Portuguese tarts, usually the crust is kind of chewy already and kind of tough, but this one bite. Mom says, phyllo dough. Okay, let's try it with cinnamon. Delicious as well. So I guess it's kind of like you don't need one whole box, especially if you're on a diet. You just need one. You can have a bit with a coffee, you can have a bit with a cinnamon, a bit with a sugar, or plain, and you're happy. Thank you, Roy. So this place is so big, it's so amazing, and I have to say, it really is different from getting it from the source. It's kind of like a lot of those cheese tarts that you get in Japan, and then they bring it to another country, and it's just really not the same. So if you ever have the chance to come to Lisbon, Yes, even if you don't have a sweet tooth, you have to try their pastéis de Bacalao. God, I hope I'm saying that right. So it's so interesting. So I learned, you know, not just here, but in so many countries in the world, people are not allowed to touch your food in preparation for sanitary reasons. But this is the only place in the country where they're allowed to touch it. It's actually really, really hot. It looks like it doesn't even, it's not even hot, but those little cups right there are actually 300 degrees. Amazing. Okay, so walking down from the pastel place, now we are here in this monastery, Hieronymus Monastery. Okay, now speaking of monastery, so the monks, you know, when you think of monasteries, there are monks, and monks are great chefs, and they also are great beer makers, and that is why the maker of that pastel is actually a monk. In a nutshell, from what I remember, is that the king just happened to be driving by and it was telling his guy, hey, I'm hungry, let's pass by the first bakery. And that's what they did. And then it was, I think there's not much food left. And then the guy was like, oh my God, the king is here. I'm so sorry, there's nothing left for me to sell or to give you, but I have these, which were the tarts. And the king loved it so much that he told all his people the next day, he's like, these are some of the best cakes. This is the best cake I've ever had, and it's that pastry, it's that bakery right beside the monastery. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, take a look at this door right here. Now, that is considered one of the most beautiful sculptures in Europe. Well, if you can imagine, that's like one whole big block of cheese. And you're gonna sculpt that, or like ice, and you're gonna sculpt it to one design. If you screw that up, you're gonna have to start all over again. So the sculpture of this was just this amazing guy. I think it's being flashed right here. It was just so revolutionary. Anyway, so the architect of this place, again, he was also Portuguese, and at that time, the technology, or I guess like how he measured things, you know, like architecture, everything is numbers to be precise, especially when doing arches, because you don't want them to fall apart. And at that time, when it was completed, it was kind of like, how could you have completed that? A lot of people thought that the Portuguese architect was just out of luck, or because he was just throwing punches in the air, or he was lying. They even thought that aliens came and helped build this monastery. But it's like, no, dude, that was all on us, because it was so advanced, 150 years ahead of his time. Seriously, guys, can't we just give credit where it's due? Yeah. So he's considered like the Shakespeare of Portugal. Now, he was hired to be sort of like an historian, so whatever it is that he saw, he would report and write it down. But how would he write it down? He would do it in the form of poetry. Now, kids in Portugal have to actually study all his writings, because it can be quite frustrating, because sometimes one poem can be 600 pages long. So a lot of the pillars right here, again, sculpted so beautifully. But of course, as with any church, as with any building, there's always some reconstruction, renovation, or some natural disasters, just like a 9-point-something earthquake. And that's why when you look at the top of these pillars, there's like an empty space where there's no carving. That's actually the demarcation, that from that point up to the top are actually not fake, but they're restorations, no longer the original, and the ones from below are still the original. Good one. Alright, so you see that ceiling up there? Okay, so in 1503, can you just imagine the technology of having to make an arch without it collapsing was so revolutionary back then. And of course the king was like, hey, I mean, how can you prove that it's actually not going to collapse on me, because I could be walking there and I could die? And so the architect was like, you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to sleep right underneath that arch. That's why there's this black marble right here, which is like exactly where he stayed. He slept here for 3 months just to show that nothing happened. It didn't collapse. And if you see at the top, they're like different like things right there, those are crosses, the symbols of the king. And so the architect said to the king, look, I put the crosses right there, so should one follow me, then that means that I have failed you. So that's where King Manuel is actually buried, on the left, and on the right is where his wife is. So, what are other things that I've heard since this lovely tour? Well, for one, Madonna has actually been living here for 3 years, and I think one of her children, her son, is a famous football star. Speaking of star, that horse is so handsome. Holy crap, guys. Okay, so I was showing like this video that you could see, and I was thinking that that was the cathedral of St. Anthony. St. Anthony, he's right there. But no, it's actually this. All the scaffolding. So it's actually under renovation. Okay. So once again, it's not really a religious post, but I just wanted to share anyway, history. He is actually the saint that you pray to for lost things, whether it be like literally you're losing something, you lost a loved one, anything that has to do with loss, physical or non-tangible, he's the guy that you pray to. Okay, so actually he was born in Lisbon. Now the Italians will not be happy about this because they claim it on him, and Portuguese, they just call him Saint Anthony. So Saint Anthony, when he was really, really young, he really wanted to be a monk. But one, he was so young, so he was going to monasteries, and they would turn him away. And apparently he had a real name, and I didn't get to that part yet, but he had a very peculiar name, and they figured that maybe that was the reason why he wasn't accepted into those monasteries. So he decided to change his name to Anthony, I guess to make it more relatable. Now, he was so young, but he was also very, very, very wise. He was so brilliant with all his teachings that he actually was sharing that you don't need to be a monk in order to lead a religious life, which is a very good thing because everybody should be able to aspire to that. You don't need to be a priest or whatnot or a nun, and that's what he did. And his teachings, his philosophical teachings were so good that the Pope was so impressed that he actually invited him to teach theology and religious history in Italy, hence the connection to Padua. But to be specific, he's Portuguese. Now you know. So this is the room where St. Anthony was born, and this is also the same place where Pope John Paul II actually knelt down to pray. So this room right here, and there's the altar. This is the curtain. Okay, so as fate would have it, we were hoping to find dinner that was near the hotel. We unfortunately didn't have a table at the other restaurant, and just a block away, we find another restaurant called Sacramento. We took a chance, and kind enough that the guy actually had a table for us. There was one available, despite how full it is, because now they're all flocking with people. I'll just show you guys the food later and tell you what it's like. But you know what? They're actually the same owners as the other restaurant that we came from. So it's almost like God wanted us to be near the hotel. It was an answered prayer. So here we are at Sacramento. Alrighty, what do I think about that meal? Let me have a seat here while my mom is like in the toilet. Wow. That meal, you know, it's like that saying, when God closes a door, is it God? Or like when life closes the door, another one opens? That's exactly what happened here tonight. That other place was full. It was much further from the hotel. We came here, we just happened to see it by chance, and then bam! The food was excellent. So what did I have? I had an Bacalao octopus. It just had olive oil and pepper and salt, and it was excellent. Usually when they give you Pulpo, Octopus. It's like super small servings, but this one was so good. It was so succulent. It was so fresh. It was such a big serving. And then my sister had Bacalao. Now Bacalao, if you hadn't heard that, it's basically like a Portuguese dish. It's very famous. And then my mom had a really, really nice, very flavorful vegetable risotto. So when in Lisbon, in Portugal, I highly recommend Sacramento. They have a couple of restaurants under their belt. And yeah, so happy that we came here. Even if we had no reservations, it was such a nice chance. Really good food, excellent service, awesome. Okay, so here are things I learned about tipping. Tipping is not obligatory in Portugal, like not at all, especially with credit cards, because that is illegal. By law, you're not allowed to do that. Okay, the other thing, if you must tip, you can tip however amount you want, small or big, and you never leave it on the table because it's actually quite disrespectful, because it's like you're just like leaving like litter or like, I don't know, like for charity. So what you do instead is you should actually commend the waiter, whoever was serving you, and say, here's a little something for you, and then do it discreetly with a hand, with a handshake, whatever you call it, and that is how you tip, if you must. But when in Portugal, you don't need to tip. And cab drivers will make you think so. Don't do it. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit nerve-wracking just walking in the streets, because our tour guide, our concierge, everyone has been telling us, watch out for pickpockets, watch out for pickpockets. That's why I'm like holding on to my bag. I'm so scared to put out my phone. But you know what, when you think about it, the Philippines, a lot of people have all these warning signs also for tourists, because countries like the Philippines, they have it too. So I guess it's just trying to be aware. But I guess there's a lot of people here at night. We're actually walking to we're actually walking to a seafood restaurant right now for dinner. It's been a long day for the tour. It was nice. Our tour guide was just so lovely. We got to pray, we got to know history, we got to eat nice pastry. Pretty good. And our hotel is pretty awesome too, and it's so central. Okay guys, so when in Lisbon or in Portugal, there is the show. It's called Fado. It's kind of like when you're in Paris, there's Lido, you know, they're like topless ladies like doing the cabarets, and Crazy Horse, there's that too. So here in Fado, we learned that it's basically like, since it's in Portuguese, you can't really understand the lyrics, but from our understanding, it's just basically very depressing, melodramatic lyrics of people, of singers who are talking about a broken heart, of very relatable topics. So in my description, that's Adele, Taylor Swift, and a little bit of Sam Smith and Alanis Morissette. So it's the next set of performers. In fact, you can make a reservation depending on the time. It can be 8, 8:30, 9, 9:30. And then after one performance, is a change of performers. Senhora, que eu tenho fé. So I forgot the name of this plaza, but it's basically at the end of the long walk. It's already by the river, or I'm sorry, by the river. Is it river? Okay, it's just by the water. And so just a lot of people just like to come hang out here. And then it's surrounded side by side, all of them, by all these different restaurants. And then of course, typical Filipino, want to get something in the shade. I just want to show you guys out here in the sun, and then inside the shade within the buildings, there's like little stalls with some concessionaires or like little booths selling trinkets, souvenir goods. It's so cool, look at it. So I want to get one for me, it's €5. It's so light.
Aluminum, it's like that.
So it's made of aluminum, it's so light,
Exactly.
and she made it herself.
You feel comfortable.
Does it look good? Does it look good? Yes?
That's really nice.
Thank you.
Why don't
Great. Okay.
nice. I love it.
place called Portugal Experience. It's pastel de bacalao, and it's basically a croqueta, a giant croqueta that you can get with wine for €9. Holy banana. Very good. Wonderful. It is very wonderful. It's sea cod. It's not like oily. It's not oily. It's not salty. It's really good.